Hi everyone, this is a tutorial for a folded stockinette edging. Now this is a great edging for if you want your stockinette fabric to continue all the way to the very edge of your piece of work. You don't want to have any ribbing or anything like that, but you don't want the fabric to be rolling back on itself, which is what stockinette likes to do normally. So in this design, I really wanted to have like just a smooth continuation of that stockinette all the way to the edge for the sleeves and for the body. So this is just how to finish that off, how to work that folded stockinette edge. So first thing to mention is I've gone down, go down 1 or 2 needle sizes, about 1 inch before the final length that you want for your sleeve or whatever it happens to be. So here about 1 inch ago, I changed down needle sizes. The reason for that is it just stops this edge from flaring out. If you want a flared sleeve as a design feature, then fine, don't go down a needle size. But for this, I want it to be quite nice and straight. So I've gone down a needle size about 1 inch before the final length of the sleeve that I'm aiming to achieve. Then you work one round of pearl bumps, 1 round of pearl stitches. Then you work another inch-ish of stockinette. Once you've done that, you're ready to then join these live stitches to this stockinette fabric on the back. You're going to knit these in, basically knit together and bind off at the same time, these stitches to this stockinette fabric. And what you'll be left with at the end is this really nice and very neat kind of stockinette edging. So I'm going to show you now how to do that bind off bit, because it's a little bit tricky at first. Now, the first thing I do recommend is turning your work inside out for this. It's just easier when you can see the wrong side of your work. So pop your yarn through to the other side and your needles. And then you're ready to start. Okay, and you want to orientate your work so that you still have the working yarn on your right needle and your left needle is ready to start the bind off process. So when you're looking at this on the wrong side, you can see where the round of pearl bumps are, but on the wrong side they look like knit stitches, of course. So here you're looking for that round of knit stitches to identify where the pearl bump was on the right side. To work the bind off, I'm actually going to be using a slightly larger needle. I haven't bothered to put it on a cable because it's only ever going to have 2 stitches maximum on it at any time. So, but yes, a larger needle size is recommended for this bind off, just to make sure it doesn't get too tight. So to identify where to start working, you need to identify the beginning of your pearl bump round. You can see on the wrong side the knit stitches, and you can see here the jog between those knit stitches. That's the start of the round of knit stitches there, and that's where it ends. The other thing to mention for this technique is identifying the different parts of the pearl bumps. Now, when I was learning about knitting, I happened to watch a tutorial that described these pearl bumps as either rainbows or smiles, and that's quite handy here. I'm going to be referring to rainbows and smiles. So there's the rainbow shaped bump here, and they're connected with the smile bump that's sort of the inverse of that shape there. So if I'm talking about smiles and rainbows, that's what I'm talking about. Okay, so most importantly, identifying which round you're picking up into and making sure you keep picking up the same round all the way around here. Otherwise, it's going to end up looking untidy, and we don't want that. So I've knit, after the pearl bump round, 6 more rounds of stockinette. So here, from the beginning of my round, looking for that jog to identify where the first stitch is. So it's going to be I'm looking for the rainbow rather than the smile here. So I'm looking for this stitch here. So I'm going to count back 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. So it's one more than the number of stockinette rounds that you have worked after those purl bumps. That's the stitch I want to pick up. And then with my larger needle, I'm going to knit 2 together. So I'm knitting that picked up purl bump with the first stitch on my left needle. Okay, so you've made a start. Now, the most important thing, as I've already mentioned, is making sure that you're then picking up on the same round for the rest of this bind off. Otherwise, it's going to end up looking really messy on the right side, which we don't want. So I'm going to do my best to show you what we're looking for here. So what you'll have is you'll have this stretched out stitch that you've just knit onto that, together with that first stitch. What you want to do is follow that stretched out stitch, identify the smile that's next to it, and follow that smile to reach the next rainbow. And that's the second stitch that you want to pick up into. You'll do the same thing again. So you're knitting 2 together with the next stitch on your left needle. Once you have 2 stitches on your right needle, you bind off the first one. So you pick it up and lift it off the needle over that end stitch. Okay, and again, you look, you look for that stretched out stitch. You identify the smile that follows it, and then the rainbow after that. And that, I found that the most helpful way to keep myself on track. Again, you're binding off a stitch every time you have 2 on your right needle. I found that the best way to keep on track each time, follow that elongated stitch. There's the smile, there's the next rainbow, and the rainbow is the one that you want to pick up each time. And that way on the right side, you are picking up into the same stitch, the same round every single stitch, and that gives you a really neat finish to your work. Okay, so every time, see, sometimes I'm stretching out my work if it's getting a bit tight and it's hard to identify. But there's the elongated stitch, there's the smile that follows it, and there's the next rainbow. Okay, and you keep repeating that process until all your stitches are bound off, and you'll end up with just 1 stitch left on your right needle. Once you've worked a few more stitches, you should start to be able to turn to the right side just to check that you haven't accidentally gone off course and ended up picking stitches up from another round. You can check by looking just really closely and just making sure that along that line of where you're creating this join, it looks really uniform and neat. And that's a good sign that you're kind of on track and you've stayed on the right round as you're picking up these stitches. Okay, so once you reach the very last stitch of that round, you should have just 1 stitch left on your needle. All the rest of the stitches have been bound off. You can see you get this really lovely edging around that bind off. So what I tend to do at this point is pull on that stitch just to elongate it, make sure it doesn't start to unravel. Cut your yarn, and then you can just secure that final stitch and weave in the end, and the bind off is pretty much complete. Now, strictly speaking, you don't actually need to do it like this, but I really like a kind of a very neat finish on this. So I'm going to put in a duplicate stitch. So I've just gone up through the start of where I've begun my bind off. Then I'm going to go through that final stitch, pull it tight, not too tight, just so that it's the same size as all the rest of the stitches. Then I'm going to work 1 duplicate stitch here, which just finishes that off really nicely, and then you can weave in that end later on. Okay, so I mean, it's on the wrong side, so you don't really need to do that, but I just like giving my knits a professional finish. So what you should end up with is that lovely bound off edge on the wrong side, and on the right side, let's turn this back the right way round, you've got this really neat edge of stockinette fabric that isn't going to roll, it's just going to sit really nicely like that. I really like the finish of this. I think it looks really good. And if it looks this good on white yarn, it's going to look good on any colour. White shows up everything. Okay, so that is the stockinette folded edge. I hope that helps.